Hi, folks. Sorry I couldn't be there today. I'm sorry to have missed your presentations, but really thankful for the opportunity to talk about how I use the Experiential Learning Grant for 2025, which allowed Faculty of Education students to visit the Experimental Lakes area. My name is Will Burton. I'm a lecturer in the Faculty of Education. I'm a former public school teacher and principal, and I teach K-8 social studies, sustainability education, and experiential education in the Faculty of Education to pre-service teachers and in-service teachers. So I want to frame why we applied for the Experiential Learning Grant, and before I talk about how we use the money. The first piece is that we are in the midst of an environmental crisis, which is only getting worse, and which formal education has probably played a role in exacerbating. And I think formal education, K-12 and post-secondary education, is going to be absolutely crucial for us to get out of this problem. However, there's a few issues in the way. One is a structural limitation. Structural limitation being that, at least in the Faculty of Education, we have a very tight schedule where students are taking courses back to back in a condensed form for 10 weeks before they head out of the faculty into practicum. And that cycle is repeated over the last 2 years of their program. We also have financial limitations as well, which means that it is difficult to get students out of the building. And likewise, within those tight time slots, to do any kind of meaningful experiential learning over an extended period of time is quite tricky. There's also human limitations, and I think about human limitations around confidence and competency. So when we're talking about environmental education and considering the environmental crisis, a lot of students, particularly those outside of the sciences, don't feel confident or competent in talking about environmental issues, and furthermore struggle to think about designing programming for K-12 students in ways that engages them with this content and gets them into spaces where they can take action to resolve some environmental issues and get beyond raising awareness. And so I see experiential learning, such as this program maybe, as a way to increase the confidence and the competency of pre-service teachers who are going to be heading into the K-12 system to think about how they can put environmental questions, concerns, topics into what they teach, but also have experiential learning as a way for students to learn about these issues as well. So I designed a program in consultation with the International Institute for Sustainable Development, who oversee the Experimental Lakes area. The Experimental Lakes area is a fantastic scientific research laboratory located in northwestern Ontario that attracts researchers from all over the world to conduct freshwater ecology research. Sometimes these are grad students, sometimes they're professors, sometimes they are from places as far away as Africa. So when we were there was a group of African researchers there that were doing work that they were going to take back to their institutions with them. Now, what makes Experimental Lakes area so unique is that it has a series of isolated freshwater lakes, which means that experiments can be conducted on those lakes and then they can be remediated back to their original condition without polluting other lakes. Ever since the federal government withdrew funding and support for the Experimental Lakes area about 20 years ago, it has been co-funded by the Manitoba and Ontario governments, and then they fund IISD, which is actually an international organization but based out of Winnipeg. In the last few years, IISD has expanded its mandate away from formal scientific research and allowed younger people, K-12 system and post-secondary, into their space to learn from the scientists and the facilitators on site as well. So that's how we got there. One of the more, just to give you an idea of the kind of work that IISD do at the experimental lakes, is this is one of the most famous pictures that came out of the research at IISD. This is where they wanted to know why blue-green algae was appearing so much in freshwater lakes across North America. So they did a experiment where they left the top half of the lake free from pollutants, and in the bottom half they introduced phosphorus. And the phosphorus led to algae blooms, which led them to conclude that phosphorus getting into freshwater lakes was causing blue-green algae, which is one of the reasons we have Lake Winnipeg full of blue-green algae. Anyway, what did we do? We did a whole bunch. We went there for 3 days, and we got to develop some outdoor education skills. We did some fish research and some net observation. We went on a nature hike, and students also got an opportunity to learn how to canoe. For at least half of the students, it was their first time in a canoe, and we spent a couple of hours on one of the main lakes at the site as well. We were really trying to be tight with our budget. We had $1,000 to spend. The costs were a little bit more than that, so I topped it up with a little bit of TPDA money. But one of the ways that we saved money was we stayed in these biodomes. So they look kind of bougie, but it was much cheaper than staying at the actual in the dorms. We also drove ourselves out there rather than ordering a bus, and we also cooked our own food rather than eating at the mess hall. We started off our 3 days there with a tour of the science facilities, talking to scientists, looking at how their equipment worked, and asking them questions about what kind of research they were working on. And then on the first day, we hopped on a boat and went to the dock in the middle of one of the larger lakes. This is one of the facilitators from ISD who's talking about the different kinds of experiments that we were going to conduct on that dock. So one of those was to look at the oxygen levels at different levels within the lake. We also looked at water turbidity as well, and water temperature. And we identified that there were different temperatures and connected to oxygen, which allow for fish and different aquatic species to live within those different tiers of the water. We also did some critter dipping. So this is one of the students who had scooped some samples from one of the lakes that we then took back to our tables and analyzed, and used an identification card to see what kind of critters we found in the lake. And based on what kind of critters and the amount of critters, we were able to determine the health of the lake as well. This was one of the cooler things that we did. We went out quite late at night with our headlamps on, and what we were doing in these boats in the middle of the lake was capturing zooplankton. And again, the amount of zooplankton that we caught determined the health of that lake. So we were able to quantify and then determine lake quality based on that. This is one of the students who just scooped her sample and is uncapping it to count the zooplankton. We were profiled as a result of our visit by the University of Winnipeg newsletter. And within that, I was able to gather some data and some feedback from students. So I wanted to share some student voices. Unfortunately, students are in the middle of their practicum right now, so they couldn't be with us today. But I did want to capture some of the takeaways for students in terms of what the impact of this short visit was. Being there was incredibly inspiring. I remember specifically when we were out on the lake doing the night sampling for zooplankton under a sky full of stars. A learning experience does not get more surreal than that. I'm a huge advocate for hands-on learning. Therefore, I really valued my experiences at ALA. Classroom settings are always restricted by time and bells. However, our experience at ALA, we were the complete opposite, as our instructors allowed us to fully immerse ourselves in the activities and take as much time as we needed. Seeing the real world applications and implications of scientific discovery up close was beyond anything that could be taught in a classroom. There really is nothing like being there. And this last one here, which I think really is a profound statement for me. If we want our students to care about the environment and protecting our lakes, we need to provide them with opportunities to experience it for themselves. So one of the big things for me that I wanted to have students get out of this was increasing confidence and competency in taking some of these ideas, some of these practices that they got the opportunity to do through experiential learning in a hands-on way at the experimental lakes, and feel like they could bring them into their classrooms as K to 12 teachers. The takeaways, the debriefs we had at each day were modeled on the experiential learning cycle, where we act, and then we reflect, and then we think about how we can then take that learning and fold it back into our actions in repeated cycles. And so this was something that all students commented that they were taking away, that they felt good about their ability to do this, but also a deeper sense of understanding of why environmental education needs to become more pronounced in K to 12 learning, looking for those learning outcomes in the curriculum and opportunities for connecting in questions around environmental science and environmental studies. So for me, even though it was just 3 days, we had students that had varying levels of interest and capacity for experiential learning. But by the end, all the students felt really good about this and wanting to draw it into their forthcoming practicums. So I just want to say thank you again to Nyala for organizing the experiential learning grants for last year. And thank you for setting up the 2026 series of grants. Without this funding from the experiential learning grant, we would not have made this possible. It would just have been, the financial barriers would have been too severe, and we really wanted to reduce the financial barriers for students engaging in this. We didn't just want students that were affluent to be able to participate. We wanted all students to be able to participate, and I feel that everyone that went was able to do so without worrying about finances. So again, huge thank you to the committee for providing us for this money, and thank you again to Nyala, and all the best to the rest of the awardees. And yeah, thank you.